Hello, everybody. And for those of you who do not know her already, this is the fabulous Ro, who firstly is the most extraordinary mum of 3 boys, including 2 teenage twins, one of who does have a severe disability. And if you don't know her full story, I would urge you to listen to the 5 Hour Club podcast where we share it, because this quick introduction does not do her determination and resilience justice. So now she is a level 4 personal trainer and mindset coach, and of course the founder of the incredible She Collective, which supports women, especially those in midlife, to move, think and live in ways that empower them, but more importantly, help them live life sustainably. Now, welcome, Ro. I know this isn't live, but we can pretend.
What an introduction, by the way. I was like, okay, can you just come over and be my pep girl? I love that. Thanks.
To say about in a minute, that's not even the surface of what you are. So just so you know, it was hard to get it into a second.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Lovely to have the opportunity to do this.
It's really nice. I'm sorry this isn't live, but hopefully we can share our wisdom and then other people will be able to take it already. But I will have a commission actually, because when we put this in, I think it must have been in the autumn, I was like, great, we'll have a high energy Ro workout, kick us off for the new year. January, and I was like, oh no, I'm exhausted.
Fair, Amy, if you'd requested that, I would have been like, decline. Sorry, Amy, love you, but no.
I don't know. I think it's because in my head, I still am almost living my pre-children life, where you sort of go into New Year full of energy, or I don't even know if it is true, but with this idea about resolutions and this new me, new year.
100%. It's literally been drilled into us since we were tiny. So of course, that's so natural that you feel like that. But New Year is a very masculine energy. You know, it's like, get stuff done, let's go for it and stuff. Whilst actually, New Year is in January. Let's just take a moment to let that land.
To want to do anything new.
No, absolutely not. And it is like a time we're allowed to have a winter. And I think this has been a real game changer for me. I mean, I'm the same. Honestly, even last year, I remember launching 3 different programs and it was like, right, let's go. And I was so exhausted and burnt out. And yeah, it's not the one to be pushing January. We're all knackered from Christmas, as we were just saying.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, I've booked in quite a few calls and things in January, and I almost regret that because I'm not ready to do all of those. I feel like I need to just hide in a really dark hole for a minute and just ignored and not do very much. And I've been running this analogy actually on my Instagram about wanting to hibernate like a hedgehog, because that is how I feel. I am exhausted from December. I just want to down. And I mean, unfortunately, my kids will not let me do that. But that is what I want to do. And I think it's literally only this year where I've really realised that I need to reset. I need to think differently about January, because that is not sustainable as a parent, as a mum, as somebody who does a lot in December. It's just not doable.
It's the period of life as well. What worked for you in your 20s isn't going to work now, you know, it's such a different season of your life and it requires something different. And that slowness that you're talking about and stuff, that is that recalibration. You think about what was demanded from all of us in December, right? We were the CEOs of Christmas. We're on logistics, we're on practical stuff, we're on managing emotions. If you are there at that capacity and then you are layering on all these demands, there's no way that your body is going to be okay, let's go. And that's what people mistake so often with lack of motivation. It's no, it's lack of capacity. You've got to land and recalibrate to be able to gain that capacity. And I think that's where so many of us have gone wrong, because it's a different game now. You've got hormones at play, you've got families, there's so much going on. It is just a different playing field. And that acceptance is honestly such a game changer.
Yeah, that's what I love when you said about the topic for this session about this whole cyclical and seasonal living. I mean, I'm sort of trying to do the cyclical thing too, but I hadn't really realised how much that seasonal part plays in how I run my life now. Like you say, it is all seasonal. We are in a very different season of our lives compared to, other points. So how can we then use that to our advantage rather than going against it, going against the
Yeah.
system, going against the grain. So hopefully, right, that is what you're going to talk to us about today. So as well as sort of sharing some ideas around this sort of cyclical and seasonal living, also ways in which we can then use that to help us reset and regulate our nervous system. So if I could hand it over to you, tell us more about what it means then to be or live in a sort of more cyclical and seasonal way as opposed to what we used to do.
So I think the main thing is that really it's not that constant trying to swim against the tide, because, you know, when you are exhausted and you push through, when you're tired but wired and so you're doom scrolling, all of these things essentially are creating this like resistance in your body. And then what happens is that eventually these things, they just, you know, at first they're just there and they're ticking along, and then they come to the surface. They come, whether it's physically or emotionally, and it actually dulls down your life. So you're doing these things to bring in the spark to your life, but actually you're exhausted and you're demotivated. And then because we've been taught that you just have to push harder and do all of these things and just keep going, then you feel like a failure. So then with that comes the guilt and the shame. So it really is about like learning this level of self-compassion and understanding what's going on in your body, and then taking that as like full permission to take your foot off the pedal. Because actually then when you do that, then you are increasing your capacity. And then when you could increase your capacity, then you've got those steady foundations. But if right now on the back of a nervous system that has been absolutely beasted for a month, you go in all hard and fast and go, that is when you're going to hit burnout. And the thing about burnout is, I heard this great phrase about it the other day, and it couldn't be more true. And I'm speaking from experience, is that it taps you on the shoulder 1,000 times with a feather, and then it hits you like a bus. So it's like, hi, you're doing too much. And those might be those tiny little signs. Those might be you not wanting to make it to the mat. They may be you say your body saying, oh my God, I'm just so tired, and you pushing through. And they're really, really subtle until they're not. And so the main thing for me is about teaching women, like I say, to move with your cycle if you have a cycle, but working with your hormones essentially. And then, but also giving yourself that permission that life is not linear. So your year is not going to be linear. So actually how you approach your health and your well-being is going to be very different. And what I sort of am putting out into the world in a spring or summer or wherever it may be with the She Collective is going to look really different, because we have this different energy in winter, in spring, in summer. And so I think it really is just about reducing that resistance and working with yourself. And I think when you do that, you build up this level of self-trust. And then when you trust yourself and you back yourself, then life just gets so much easier, because we all know what it's like to live with that little voice in your head that's being really mean to you. And when we can work on that, then everything gets a lot lighter. But like I say, this is not me sat here on a pedestal being smug. This is me as a woman who's experienced this firsthand. And last year was a terrible year for me, you know, and it wasn't until October I saw you. Honestly, like I actually mentioned it. Who did I mention to? Nikki. And I was like, oh my God. And then I saw Nick and saw Amy, and she was like, I could just tell you're not okay. And it was like you saw into my soul, and I was not okay. But it was actually not pushing through to get to that breakthrough. You know, I kept pushing and pushing, but actually taking my foot off the pedal and really taking my nervous system seriously. It's like you've got 2 feet on the ground. It's like, oh, this is what it feels like. Okay. And then you can be brave, but you've got to have those foundations first. So that's a long-winded way of saying why it matters, and why it matters to me to share it, really.
And this is why I love you, because you are so vulnerable and honest about your own experiences and what has led you to this point, and what has led you to creating the She Collective, and why you're doing what you're doing. You create programs which you need as well. And I think I'm about 2 steps behind you, because I think I saw you in October, and I could just see how low you were. And I was like, this is not the Ro we know. This is not, you're full of energy and excitement and drive. there is something massively wrong there. And I think it's easy to see it in somebody else, but it is hard to see it in yourself. And it is only when you're at breaking point that you're like, I need to stop. And I've done it myself. I did it over December. I got to that point too, and I was like, I just need to stop doing whatever it is that I'm doing, because I was more irritable with my children. I think it comes out in different ways. We did
big time, yeah.
Christmas, and it's like, it might be that you're more shouty, you're more irritable, you say no to things that you normally would do, or you try and escape things. You might book a holiday, or or try and work too much, and it is listening to those things. I think until you're aware that those things exist and are sort of outlets for your nervous system alarming you and telling you, no, this is not okay, you're not your normal self, then you can't almost accept it, and then you can't listen to it. I think you have to sort of listen to all those tiny things, like you say with the feather. That's a really nice analogy. Scary.
And every time, I think the problem is that every time, because I've had quite a few, mini burnouts and then some bigger ones. And every time it gets harder, every time it gets harder to bring yourself back. And I think that the thing is that essentially, if we do see ourselves like batteries, and you have those things that drain you and those things that plug you in, essentially, then actually the things that plug you in, if you really learn what your toolkit is, and that's no one else's, like that, I think that's really important. Something that I always say is that no other woman is walking in your shoes. Nobody gets what your life is like. Even that like preschool run, like I meet so many different women with so many different experiences. So your situation is unique, and no one is harder or easier. But I think it is just so good to give yourself that permission to take those little pauses, because they can make the biggest difference. There are so many things that I'm putting into my day and catching myself. Being that almost like external, it's like I'm sitting outside of myself and go, hey, just watch it. Like last night, I was sat there and it was a big day yesterday, big day. And I suddenly started to feel that I was getting a bit of heartburn, and I often get heartburn when I'm stressed. And I thought I'd been coping really well all day. And then I was like, when did I take a proper break today? And so catching that and going with today, I've got a really busy day today, but that break has to be non-negotiable. It is absolutely non-negotiable. And I know that I'm going to work better this afternoon, but you have to get those little small success stories. So it's like that moment of, I just took 5 minutes of breathing. No, but nothing happened. The world didn't implode. And actually, I feel a lot better for it. And just to give you an example, one of our community leaders this morning, she messaged, and she's got a baby. And she was saying that, she had had a bad night or something, and she was exhausted. And so instead, she did, I think it was a stretch or maybe the nervous system resource or something. And then she said that then 2 hours later, she did one of the workouts, but she had no plan whatsoever to do one of the workouts. And that just shows she'd given herself the capacity to do it. And that's not about doing more. That was about doing less. And so actually she sat there and did 20 minutes of something for her nervous system. And therefore she charged up her battery and she was able to do it. But of course she couldn't do it on an empty battery. And then we beat ourselves up for it. And I think that that's what's so important. It's just, we've got to be a bit nicer to ourselves.
It's true. I think we guilt trip ourselves when we're a bit snappy with the kids, or shouting. No wonder, because actually, if I look at that day or that morning, I hadn't given myself any time, or I had had a shower, or or even had anything to eat. That is a big game changer for me, is thinking about what I'm eating as a way to fuel my energy, because I never looked at it like that before. And recently, I thought, actually, I'm hungry a lot because I don't have time to even have a lunch break or to have a snack with the kids. So I know everybody's unique, but what are some of the things that we can start reflecting on, that we can do, acknowledge and live in this way where we are listening to ourselves more? Is there any toolkits? What other things?
Totally. So firstly, what I was talking about, really like noticing and starting to just get to know yourself a little bit better. I am a massive fan of when it comes to your cycle tracking. I honestly feel like it is such a game changer. I use an app called
Mm,
Flow, and
me
just
too.
being able to see like where I am at in my cycle, it makes so much sense because it's your permission for that self-compassion. Because I know that when I'm in that luteal phase and like your autumn and you're coming up to that menstrual phase, I am going to feel pretty shite, frankly. And my energy is going to be low. And emotionally, that phase really affects me. And I found that more and more. And so therefore that's just something, a level of awareness of knowing where you are at in your phase, because then it's not about going, okay, I only do these kind of workouts at this point, at this point, at this point. I'm not really for that approach. I really like flex, but it's about you being able to tap in and go like, okay, I'm going to match my mood, match my energy. What do I need today? This gives me a little bit more information about what is going on for me. And sometimes I'll literally take my phone and shove it in my husband's face and just be like, FYI.
You know what? I
Just giving
started
you a
putting my
heads up.
on the fridge. I have it on the fridge. I'm just like track my cycle, so he knows
Great.
exactly what's coming. Does he pay attention? Not necessarily, but
No.
I can just be like, look, like
Yeah.
I think you can see the signs. I can feel it. Let's work together on this because
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
helpful in knowing too.
And then and I think like with journaling, like one of the things that I really think is really powerful about journaling is it's about reflecting in that moment after you've taken action with your health and your well-being, how you feel. It's very easy to think something and then you forget it, right? But instead, if you're going like, that made me feel calm, that made me feel energized, and then you can match, like I say, match your mood, match your energy with what resources you've got to hand. And that is really powerful. And the same goes with nutrition. So I'm not a calorie counter, I'm not a macros counter, I don't do any of that stuff. A lot of the women who come into my world have been like deeply damaged by diet culture. So the only rule that we have in the WhatsApp groups is no weight chat. And that's not because it's an invalid goal, and it's not because, it's not a worthy goal. That's absolutely fine. If somebody wants to lose health for their confidence and for their health, fantastic. But the reason that we don't do that is because the moment that you put your health and well-being down to metrics, then the moment that those metrics don't align with your desired goal, so you're on your period and you step on the scales and you're half a stone bigger, whatever it may be, then suddenly you're into this, I failed. And it's like, no, you haven't failed. You're human. So there's so many different factors at play. So instead, the only thing that I would say when it comes to nutrition, when you're thinking about it in terms of actually fueling yourself, is noticing how you feel after certain foods. Because, for example, if we were talking about calories, you could have an apple and some peanut butter, and that would be more calories than the biscuit. But the biscuit is going to pick you up and it's going to drop you off the cliff in terms of your energy. But the other, option, whatever it may be, if you've got a bit of fiber, some healthy fats, some proteins in there, whatever it may be, then actually you are nourishing yourself and you're going to give yourself a much steadier rise. Because I think it's really easy to reduce food and nourishment down to those metrics and what do they mean in terms of calories. But actually it's like, no, what does that mean in terms of my energy, my mood? Because all of these things affect us. And that's why I always say to women, like particularly about, again, removing that shame and that guilt, does it serve you? Does it serve you? Because like when you are sat with friends with a cup of tea and cake or whatever, that serves you. That's part of the tapestry of life. Remove the shame, remove the guilt. But that's very different from nosediving into a biscuit bin at 4 o'clock and then kind of being like, why am I so snappy? Because your energy has just suddenly crashed. So it's just an awareness. So I think in terms of the first step, I would say is building up that awareness about yourself, like almost getting to know yourself without judgment, being curious about yourself. And then we've got these little tools that you can bring out. So like I say, knowing which tool you need at a certain time. But for example, like one of the things that I am such a big fan of is just breath, like breathing. Because when I did my back in, because it was like discs at the top of my neck, they just said every time they'd be like, You don't breathe into your diaphragm. It's all like, all up here. And so when I learned to breathe properly, because that is one of the simplest ways to switch out of that flight or fright, which was only designed for when we were in front of like a saber-toothed tiger, or our lives were at risk. And now we are constantly in it, and I think that we have to notice the things that we do for a dopamine hit that actually put us into that flight or fright. So if you're waking up in the morning and the first thing you are doing is reaching over, scrolling Instagram, and your algorithm is feeding you all these sad stories of maybe people's very sad things going on in their lives, you're probably an empath like me. Like, you're probably suddenly in that person's world, and that doesn't mean that they shouldn't share that story, but it does. What I mean is, you don't need to digest that first thing in the morning. That's too much for your nervous system. And 6 months ago, I would have said that I could do what I do in the morning, but it takes me 20 minutes. I do a 10-minute meditation or I actually quite like visualization, because I find my mind wanders if I'm not being almost told what to think of. And then 10 minutes of journaling, because actually the journaling following the meditation, I feel like it all brings it to the surface, and I get it out, and it's a game changer. But what if I think about even like a year ago, you wake up, that stress hormone is at its highest point, your body's full of cortisol, you're waking up, you're doom scrolling, you're grabbing a cup of coffee on an empty stomach, and then you're wondering why the mornings are hell. And it's like, because your body is in the biggest state of stress. And so I think it is just about realizing that that was a 20-minute example. It could be 90 seconds of locking yourself in a bathroom and breathing. But when you bring in those micro moments, it just brings everything down. That's what we need.
And that's it, isn't it? I think it isn't about changing all of these things at once. It's about these tiny little tweaks, just noticing what works for you and what doesn't. I'll give you an example from me, is that I was saying about the food. I didn't eat first thing in the morning. I would give the boys breakfast. They'd have their porridge and all of those things. I would wait until I come back from the school run, but I would be snappy every time we're doing the school run. And whether it's this or that, and I'm trying to track my cycle, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But the biggest change that I've had is just having a very small amount of protein, bit of yogurt first thing in the morning, in that first hour when I wake up with them. And then the past few days, I have been a lot calmer when it comes to getting the shoes on.
It's a game changer. It's so simple, but such a big difference, isn't it? It really is. And it can be so simple. I think that's the thing, is that I'm a big fan of like pimping your plate, as opposed to having to create these Insta-worthy, beautiful plates or whatever. And so for me, like, I'm a creature of habit. So it's just the same thing pretty much every morning other than the weekend. So I'll have porridge, and then I will have full fat Greek yogurt, because hormones, hello. And then, and berries for those antioxidants. I know that they are ridiculously expensive. You have to remortgage your house.
You have to get them for the kids anyway, because let's face it, they won't eat any other kind of fruit.
Yeah, anyway. and frozen, we've got to remember, frozen stuff is a lot cheaper, and it basically gets frozen at the optimum point of freshness. Great. And then a little bit of protein granola and some chia seeds, and that is delicious. It keeps me full. And because it is built into that morning routine, it just takes the guesswork out of it. And I think this is it, is that we think that we need loads of variety. We think that we need loads, like, these things need to be complicated. And actually, sometimes it's just the simple stuff.
If I find something that is working, just stick to it. If it's the same thing every day, great. Then I don't have to think about it. I don't have to faff around with what, where things are. So before we finish up, could we maybe do one of your breath workouts? Or maybe we can try. So in those moments when we're really feeling the heat, that we can stop ourselves and have one of those to go away with.
Yeah. So I'd love to do 2 different types with you, and it will literally be 90 seconds. So the first type is box breathing, And that's essentially where the inward breath, the hold, and the exhale are all the same. Now, the purpose of box breathing is just that regularity of the breath. It essentially anchors you. And then the second type is where we do 4, 6, 8. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 6, and then exhale for 8. And that is going to give you that like deeper release. Okay. So I really love, if you can, if you put one hand on your chest and then one hand on your tummy. Just let your shoulders soften, because sometimes you can realize suddenly when we're doing this, holding a lot, right? And then if you can, just close down your eyes. And then we're going to take an inhale through the nose for the count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. One more. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. This time we're going to make that outward breath a little longer. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and release. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. And just feel your body, right? Just release a little bit. You wouldn't usually like count that much because it's really annoying. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. I mean, I need that because otherwise I drift and I
Yeah, but that's it, right? And you might start with counted breathing, and then you just find your own path with it and stuff. But breath is just, even when we just sat and went like that, I was like, woo, I'm holding it. Like, yeah, shake it out. Like, yeah, it's those tiny little accessible things. And it's like, where you're like going like this with your arms and going like this, and just a little bit of bringing a bit of movement, putting on your best favorite song and dancing like in the kitchen. That is such a powerful thing. That is 5 minutes. That shifts your mood, shifts your energy. And it's just bringing you, I think one of the biggest things is like, because I teach spin, and one of the biggest things I always say at the beginning is about getting out of your head and into your body. Because our heads are so noisy and naughty. And so just that moment, okay, like I'm noticing like my bum in the seat. I'm noticing like my shoulders. Like those moments of bringing it back to like, I'm here, I'm present, are such a game changer. And like I say, like this is kind of new to me. Like I've been the PT who's been like, right, let's go. And it worked so far. And I think that's the thing. And then last year it was like, what is the message here? Why is this happening? And I do believe, I do think things happen for a reason. And on the other side, I'm glad, I'm glad it did.
Yeah, you're using that to give back to the women that you're working with. You're seeing it yourself. You're seeing these cycles. And yeah, there's a time and a place for those high energy workouts. And in parts of your cycle, there definitely is. And like you say, I mean, in the summer when you can go out and do it in the grass with other people, but when you're at home, those like dancing in the kitchen with your kids, that's something you can do with them to get out of yourself, to get into your body. I think it is about those tiny things, but listening, I think, is the key here.
That's why actually usually I do 4 workouts a week, and we've done 3 so that people can choose, because no one is the same. And like what I'm loving seeing, right, is women getting out of the house. I think we put ourselves into boxes. I'm a gym goer. I'm a home exerciser. And it's the most successful journeys I've seen are like this. They're squiggly, and you do a bit here and a bit there, and that's how it can look. But I think we're so used to putting ourselves into a box. And that's the same goes with identity. I'm not somebody who looks after my health. Well, take action that day. You now are, because you are defined by your actions. So the second you start doing that, You are.
And it can be so restricted, can't it? If you say, okay, New Year's the only time I can set a new goal, or actually, no, if you're listening to what it is that's showing up and makes sense to you, then it can go over. And I'm definitely learning that. So I really, really appreciate this chat today, Ray. I think you given me a few little things that I can go and play with as well. But for those of you who would love to learn more from you, where can they find you at the She Collective? Because I know you've got 2 programs, one currently running at 7-day reset. So your upcoming Rise program. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Well, if someone listens to this like soon, then we're only on Tuesday of the 7-day reset. So someone is more than welcome to join us. It's completely free. Don't my goal this January to make things as accessible as possible. And then we've got Rise starting on the 19th. Which anyone could start at any point, but that's when the groups start. And I love Rise so much. I really do. It felt really good to put out something that I'm just so in love with. And our members, our existing members have started this week, and just seeing the way it's landing for them is really special, because, you know, you build something and you're like, I love this. This is making me feel really good, but you don't know how it's going to land. And so it's our first program actually that is really about hormones and nervous system, like right at the forefront of like everything, like every single thing. We've got the foundations, and then so we have guides to go alongside the workouts, nervous system resources, mindset sessions. And I love it. I love it. And then for the first time ever, we've got Rise coaching, which is really exciting. So I did my first coaching session with existing members last week, and then that starts on Monday as well. And that's a smaller container, deeper support. So you just don't get stuck. Don't you dare get stuck in the wobble, basically, yesterday. I was like, reach out to me. That's what I'm there for.
We just need sometimes that accountability, don't we? Just somebody to see, like we said earlier, is you can see other people for what is going on for them quicker yourself. Just having that extra voice in your head is really...
Just quickly, the best thing about it was seeing how different people's goals are, which I loved so much. They varied so much in terms of, like, some people it's consistency, but some people it's the voice in your head. Some people it's about working with your hormones. And that is what I think is just so important, is that you really think about what matters to you. And that's what I would love people to come away with and go, oh yeah, me, I matter. Because it was when, you know, I've just started working with lovely Sophie Griffiths. And it was when she said to me, but what do you want, Ro? And I was like, sorry, me? What?
I'm not important. Who said I was important?
So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity.
Everybody else, don't we? We just forget about us in the mix of that. But let's face it, if we don't look after ourselves, then they're not going to have us, you know, around there showing up.
Absolutely. You're the mothership. You go down, they all go down.
Oh yeah. It's so true. No one else is going to captain this ship or make the magic. It's all on us. So
no.
Oh, thank you so much, Ro. Give me your Instagram handle before we go, just so we can make sure we can find you. Thank you so much, Ro. That was so helpful and so refreshing. A lovely start to the new year. Just what I think we all need. So thank you. All right, my love. Take care.
Take care. Bye.